Hello, everyone, and welcome to Can You Hear Me? I'm Eileen Rochford, CEO of the Harbinger Group, a marketing and strategy firm.
And I'm Rob Johnson, president of Rob Johnson Communications. You know, here at Can You Hear Me, we talk about a lot of things that are related to business communication. And one of the key components, and sometimes it's overlooked, and that is networking.
That's right. This is a crucial topic for anyone navigating the professional world. Networking isn't just about collecting business cards. Do people have those anymore?
I know. Well, virtual, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we do. Or racking up your LinkedIn connections. It's really about establishing, building more meaningful relationships that can open doors for you and create opportunities in your career and your life.
Yeah, it's so vital. And sometimes people who are in the thick of their own careers don't realize how important it is because they're like, I'm so busy. I'm a busy executive. I'm doing all this sort of thing. And yet, were you to expand that network a little bit, it can really, really help you.
And it's funny. It's kind of like sales, right? The time for sales is when everything's going great, right? And same for networking. Everything's going great in your business. You have more work than you possibly can handle, but they're remembering to not hit the pause button on interacting with networking opportunities, shall I say. Finding new people in your life by either attending events or doing things virtually on LinkedIn, making connections there, really diving into people's network on LinkedIn to really figure out what commonalities do you have with them, or do they have different aspects in their areas of expertise or their own LinkedIn connections that can lead to things that you're wanting to accomplish in your career. That's what I think we're going to talk about in detail today.
I think you are absolutely correct. You know, networking isn't just a buzzword. It's a fundamental aspect of career development and for personal growth. Now, whether you're looking to advance within your current organization or explore new opportunities outside of it, having a strong network can make all of the difference. And I know this because when I was pivoting from TV to, hey, I want to get into the consultant world, this whole group of people just presented themselves. And I said it just a second ago about when you're busy doing your job, sometimes you're not worried about, expanding your network. And I was certainly guilty of that. But the minute I wanted to pivot and do something else and do something, say, as a consultant where, if you go on LinkedIn, and I rarely did when I was in my other vocation, I was on LinkedIn and I still am on LinkedIn all the time because the people that I want to reach, the people that I want to network with, the people that see value in it are all there. So all of a sudden I always felt like, I have a great network of people. And I realized I did, as the TV guy or whatever. And I knew a lot of people in business and that was great. And then when it was time to actually ask them for something, I'd always help them with things. When it was actually time to ask them for something, a few of them stepped up, yourself included. I was surprised for as many people as I had helped, how few were who really stepped up. But the ones who did were like, okay, that was a real part of the network. And so that taught me a lot. And I wasn't, angry or bitter about it. It was just like, oh, that's good to know. Yeah. But then I started pivoting and found networks of people where it was good energy, where it was supportive, and it was a little bit different than the network that I knew. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I'll share an observation about what you were doing, during, say, 30 years as a journalist that I think paved the way for a soft landing when you did have to transition and, kind of move in a new direction. You were always active in the community. You were always willing and ready to MC a charity event, be on a board, help people with their own job search. Even though you weren't doing that on LinkedIn, you were doing that. And those were real and meaningful connections. And that's really what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely.
So you had made all these deposits in the trust bank, essentially, and in the bank of gratitude that you could draw upon. And I mean, I'm sad to hear that you didn't have all of the success that you should have had in your pivot in the first year right away. But I think what I'm trying to highlight is it's a two-way street. So you did all of that to establish really just good vibes, right? Putting good vibes out into the universe and being kind and doing good things for people with no ulterior motive whatsoever. And often when you live your life that way, then when you need it, people do turn around and assist you, right? So I'm just trying to establish that two-way street part of networking is really, really important. You can't just take in a network, because you'll come to the end of your sidewalk a lot sooner if that's how you're kind of operating in networking with a goal in mind that's very selfish. So being very selfless, but while also managing your time, because time is money, is a critical part of networking. And you did that really well. And you didn't even have to ask me. I mean, you did so many favors for us. And in terms of Golden Apple coverage of their amazing stories,
right.
they're wonderful.
Those are our great moments every year, right?
Yeah, and also emceeing their events and things. As soon as I heard that you had a transition, this is a good example of what it's a two-way street. You reach out to someone in need and offer to help. Yeah. So that's another thing that I think we should highlight to folks about what good networking looks like. It's always being willing to help those who have helped you. That's another really important part of it.
Thank you for the kind words. That means a lot to me coming from you. And your points are well taken, because if you're sitting there like, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? If you go into every networking experience wondering what's in it for you, you're not going to get much out of it. It has to be, how can I help you? And so your point is spot on.
Absolutely. And yes, I will just say to all of our listeners, Rob is the quintessential networker, whether he realizes it or not. There's a reason why everywhere we go, people love to see him. So
thank you.
So I think we covered a bunch of points about things being mutually beneficial in relationships, and it's a two-way street, and those are important things to know. But you also highlighted this, and I want to just sit on it for a second, that it's the seeking places, networks, communities, whether it's on LinkedIn or live, where you feel a kinship for the people that you're with. I think that's where you're going to feel or build the most solid networking opportunities versus I'm just going here because it's an industry where I know we can build up our business and I'm seeking to make sales connections, right? You need to do a bit of that too, but also look for those other places where you're really feeling the kinship and finding the kindred spirits who are right for you to help you grow personally, professionally, and in all the ways that you're maybe seeking to grow business as well. So looking for professional organizations, industry events, all the good communities that exist on LinkedIn. Really dive into those. I try not to get overwhelmed by what's on LinkedIn. I try to just look at it as...
It's easy to, though. It
is. That's why I try so hard. But it's a giant buffet, right, of opportunity or smorgasbord, whatever. There's so much that you could dine on every day. Try to decide what your goals are for the short term. Maybe this quarter, maybe this year. These are the things that you want to accomplish in LinkedIn, or the types of people you want to meet, and zero in on that. Same with business organizations. It's better to join one, maybe two that are right for you than to try to attend all of the major business events in your city or in your industry. I think focus is key. That's another thing that I'll just say. But you're the quintessential networker, Rob. So I'm going to let you talk way more about this.
I think you're right though, because you could join every group. And I remember at the very beginning when I was trying to sort of get a foothold in this new world that I was in, I was like, I'm going to join this, and this, and then all of a sudden you realize, okay, that doesn't have a lot of relevance to what I'm doing. So maybe I'm going to divest a little bit in that one. This one over here is more social. It's fun. It's good to meet people, and it doesn't have to be quid pro quo. We've kind of expressed that already. But there always, at some point, there's an expectation of, I'd love to have another conversation about what I could do to help you or what you could do to help me outside the networking event. So finding those is something that I spend a little time on. And I want to point out one in particular that was really good, and it's still good. It's the Sincerity Group. This guy, Aaron Brooks, who is originally from Chicago. He lives out in Colorado now, but he has a group every 2 weeks on a Friday. He has a meeting. And the way he's structured it, and first of all, the Sincerity Group the first question out of everybody's mouth is, how can I help you? Before it's, what can you do for me? And it's never that way. How can I help you? So it's a community of givers, and they're trying to figure out how they can help you. So the first part of the meeting may start off and, hey, how's everybody doing? And what's new in your world? And this and that. And some people may be in transition. Hey, I'm looking for a job. I'm a CFO, whatever the case may be, where they can rely on people to, help you. And then he gets into a specific topic. He'll pick a topic that we can talk about as professionals for, say, 25 or 30 minutes. So it's what's new with you? What's on your mind? How's it going? How can we help you? And then you talk about a topic. And I never have expectation like, I'm going to get business out of this one. But on a couple of occasions, I've gotten business out of that one. And it's not like, okay, that's the best one because I had business out of it. I think it's one of the best ones because it's intentional, because there's a system in place, because it's a community of givers, and because everybody's supportive of one another. So I wanted to, I'm not going to sit here and go through all the networking groups per se, but I would point that one out because I think it's achieving the goals that you would want to have if you ran a networking group or if you joined one, and it's virtual.
So virtual is wonderful. I have a question. I know we don't want to share all of the networking groups because you have tried and are still a part of so many, but would you be willing to give us a rundown of them that we could include in our show notes for people to explore?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
So the ones that I've spent the most time with are Sincerity Group. I've done a lot of stuff with Tony P's networking events. That's Chicago based. They do occasional virtual things, but it's really events in Chicago. Yeah. And the good thing about Tony P's is they focus on real estate. They focus on cannabis. They focus on women's groups. The tech is one of the latest ones. They'll have panel discussions on occasion. So what Tony P's is really good at is sort of mixing it up, and it's not just doesn't feel kind of the same, and having different components and having industry specific events where people who have similar interests, can meet each other. And then another one is run by it's Center of Influence by Chris Johnson. And it doesn't have to be, it's not necessarily a Chicago based one, but he's a Chicago guy. And that's a really good, and it's also a group of like, how can I help you? And he's also elevating the discussion about issues that will be, relevant to you as a professional. So I would say those three are where I've spent my most time, and they're all a little bit different. And that's what I like about them.
Really good. Okay. So we'll link to those. Wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll highlight one that I have found to be very beneficial this past year. It's called Chief.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is exclusively for women. So if you're able to either be a guest of someone who's a member of Chief, hop on that opportunity and get yourself in the door, because the networking there is the best I've ever experienced in my professional career. But the thing that I love about Chief is there's two. First is what's called core. So it's a little bit like what you were describing with the Sincerity Group, meaning we are all kind of paired together in a group of 6, 7 women at the most, very small. There's a facilitator who's dedicated, who guides us through the same format when we meet monthly. And what is built into that time that we spend together is peer mentoring, which is amazing. It's like having a little advisory board for someone like me. We don't actually have an advisory board at the Harbinger Group, but these women have become mine. They're all from different functions and different industries, but they all have given me the best business advice that I've ever had. And I've been doing this for 21 years. So very fortunate to be a part of Chief. It's not something for everyone. It is a bit expensive. But if you do become a member, work the heck out of that for the entire, year's membership, and you'll be just so delighted with what you learn. I also appreciate the second thing that I appreciate about Chief is, so the networking events are learning based. Every time you go, it's about a topic that can help you advance as a professional in business, regardless of industry. So you go and you learn things, and it's not like, HR and how to run your HR department. No, it's about social and emotional intelligence. For example, we had an awesome seminar type networking event that was all about how to foster your own and how to foster it in your team and why it's important. Another one that I attended most recently was about friendships. Weirdly, it's about research that's been done on how adults, after the age of essentially 22, stop forming friendships, and how that stunts you as a human being, and why it's so critical right now that we do so. And more importantly, how to do so, which I loved. So that was really, really, really good too.
Well, I mean, it's also high level. I mean, that's
super high level.
You think that you're around a bunch of dynamic women, and you talked about your sort of ex officio advisory board. That's such a key component to what you're talking about here with the networking, because it's like you're the boss. All the eyes are on you at the Harbinger Group.
Yeah.
But like, who do I rely on to bounce things off of? I mean, obviously you can bounce it off your husband. He's very well versed in this whole thing.
Poor guy.
But now you have this other group of advisors, friends, professional confidants that are useful, and I would think that's just such a huge component of Chief and of what you're doing with that organization.
Yeah, I agree. My dad used to always tell me this, and I used to think, oh God, it's one of his old expressions, old people. But he used to say, you're only as good as the company you keep.
Oh, that's true.
And I understood it more and more the older that I got, because here's how I interpreted that advice. When you hang with people who you admire, you aspire to be. So think of this in the lens of networking. You elevate yourself because you're going to be challenged to be better, and you won't be satisfied with just the way you are. And that's how I approach my networking. I'm always thinking about, what can I learn if I join this group? And who do I really, really admire? And I want to learn how they do their jobs and how they view life and how they approach things. So that's another perspective to consider when you're thinking about how to ramp up or start up your networking engine.
Sure. And okay, don't forget too, the power of networking within your own company. Building relationships with colleagues and mentors can not only help you navigate the corporate landscape and help you with projects and the day-to-day, but it can also provide invaluable support and guidance as you progress in your career.
Absolutely. Internal networking is often overlooked, particularly if you're in a larger organization. And I would say even smaller. It's weird.
Sure.
But it can be just as helpful to you and important as all of the external stuff we were just discussing, because that helps you build strong relationships within your own teams or within your own company, cross-departmentally, et cetera, which would then allow you to gain insight into how those different departments function, what are the projects that they're taking on that you might be interested in, opportunities that you might not otherwise have known about. I mean, sometimes by getting to know what's happening in other departments and the types of projects that they're working on, you might actually realize, I think I want to change functions. And that might lead your career in a completely new and wonderful and prosperous direction that you would not have happened upon otherwise. So seeking out those opportunities is key.
That's the most important component of what we're talking about, in my opinion, what you just said, because we're not sitting here saying, oh, go network with people in other departments and learn the company gossip. We're talking about learning about them, learning about what they do, learning about your role, whether you may be able to help them or not, or, as you said, whether you're like, you know what, there may be something else here that's more my cup of tea.
Absolutely. And again, I think the way to approach this is find the people you admire. You just admire how they conduct themselves, how they treat others, what they've accomplished, and find opportunities to meet with them, even if it's just, coffee before work or lunch. You'd be surprised. They're going to say yes. Just take the risk and ask.
Take it. Why not? Why not? So that's the internal piece that we talked about there. There's certainly value there, but it's also a really powerful tool for career advancement, whether you're looking to land a promotion, switch roles within your company, which we just talked about there, or even transition to a new industry. A strong network can help open doors. It can help you make connections you need to achieve those goals. So the networking isn't just about making small talk at cocktail parties, giving your elevator pitch. It's about building genuine connections with people who can support you professionally and personally. And in today's competitive job market, having a strong network can give you a distinct advantage. Look for groups that discuss important issues with like-minded professionals, things we've already talked about here.
Yes.
But important to kind of repeat, because that's where you're going to really find value.
And it was brought to my attention recently by my brilliant sister, Megan, that the average retirement age in the United States, this was reported in USA Today, I think about a week ago, is now 62, which that is not by choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to just tell everyone who's listening who might be, around closer to my age, closer to your age, who, I'm 52. So 10 years from now, I'm sure shit not ready to retire. Thank you very much. But, if I were in a company situation where I didn't have a choice and I had to kind of retool myself because I wanted to keep working, spending time to really build up my network now and make sure that it's modernized, my network, that I don't just have people who are older, who are approaching retirement, but I've got a real healthy mix of folks who are, starting their career, middle of their career, owning their own companies. You want a healthy mix because it's going to prep you to be able to transition to perhaps the easiest thing that you can do, which is a consulting career. So join some boards, join some networking organizations, and really beef up your network now so that you have control over your career the older that you get. That's where I'd like to end today.
No, that's the feel good piece right there, because I sit there and tell people all the time, one of the things I really enjoy about my new career, aside from getting to use my brain a lot more and getting to help people, really help people, it's not just about me, it's about them, is the flexibility, and the flexibility with projects, with clients, with time. And at my age, because I'm a few years older than you, it has tremendous value. So we can't overstate how important that is. And having a good network of people can help you achieve those goals that you might have down the road, whether you're there already or whether you want to get there.
Yep. So get to it. Don't let it flounder. It's time.
Right.
Time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. One of my favorite expressions. I think I've said that several times on this podcast. So sorry. All right, guys. That's going to do it for another edition of Can You Hear Me? I'm Eileen Rochford. And if you would like to weigh in on our podcast or give us an idea for another topic that you're dying for us to cover, please know that you can reach us on our page on LinkedIn. So just look for the Can You Hear Me podcast page on LinkedIn and let us know. And I'm Rob Johnson. We thank you for listening. And if you like this show, please consider giving us a review on any of the platforms where you can find Can You Hear Me? Apple, Spotify, and more. Your reviews help other potential listeners find our show. Thank you so much for listening.